Hello, my name is Nana Boateng and this is the video demonstration for my portfolio website. In this video, I will discuss the HTML and CSS scripts behind each and every page, as well as explain my design decisions. The website is mobile optimized, therefore it has a desktop display and a mobile display. This is done using three CSS scripts, one which contains the CSS necessary for both displays, so CSS rules shared across both displays, and two which contain CSS rules needed for each display respectively. So each and every page has a grid layout, a single column grid layout with three rows. This is done using CSS Grid. In the top row, you can see that the nav and the site header are displayed. In the second, the middle grid cell, the main element is displayed, and at the very bottom is the footer. And this layout is consistent across all pages. You may have noticed as well, as soon as I hovered over the page, the background gradient changed and an animation of what I hope looks like shooting stars appeared on the screen. Also, the main gained a background color, a black background color, um, and an opacity lower than 1, which is what creates this sort of see-through effect where we can still see the background, but the content, the text on the main is highlighted due to the color contrast. The index page also contains a button which takes the user directly to the portfolio page, because I thought if you're visiting someone's portfolio, you might want to get to the portfolio as quickly as possible. And if for some reason they missed the portfolio link in the nav bar, they'd still be able to access it through this button. So if we go over to the portfolio, we see that it's quite similar to the index page. Like I said, it uses a single column, three row grid, and again, it has the animation in the back. The only difference with this is that the main of this page uses a two-column layout, a two-column grid layout, again using CSS Grid. Some elements are stretched across the grid completely, while others are contained in a single grid cell. If we move back to the index page, because I don't think I showed you actually, it uses a 5 grid layout. This allowed me to position the elements in a more precise manner across the page, especially this greeting here. I wanted it sort of to the left, but also in the center, if that makes sense. And if we go back to the portfolio and we scroll down again, the footer at the bottom, so the layout is consistent. And now if we go over to the blog page, you'll see that it's very similar to the other two, more so to the portfolio page, again because it uses images. However, unlike the portfolio page, which used placeholder images because I hadn't yet built any sites, I actually created one incomplete page, sorry, and attached it to this just to show what would happen if a user was to click the link. It would take them to the specified page, um, but that's in the case of the blog. Of course, in the portfolio, once these links are actually attached to work that I've completed, it would probably take them to a completely different site. The about page is quite self-explanatory. It's about me. It gives the user information about myself, personal statement, education, work experience. This page again has the same layout, except it is it's text-based. There's no images, and it's all about the text. The contact page is quite similar again to the about, except this uses input fields, so it relies more on input from the user. It also provides my contact details in case they wish to contact me through another form, and the user can then send an email to me using the submit button, which would then pass the information they put in the fields along to me. And the site report, which I'm sure you will have a look at, is just a detailed overview of my development journey. And it uses images to give you a better picture of what is being described in the paragraphs, as well as obviously the validation reports at the end. So now that we finished reviewing the desktop display, we're gonna briefly discuss the mobile display. So again, you can see the mobile display has exactly the same content as the desktop display because it's the exact same website. The only difference is the way in which the content is displayed. In other words, the CSS rules behind the the pages. Each and every page uses a single column layout. I didn't change the CSS grid rules behind the pages, except I stretched every element across the grid to achieve this single column display. So as you can see, everything's exactly the same except for the layout of the elements. If we go over to the blog, you can see it's the exact same thing, the single column layout. The labels really help on a mobile device to explain what the images represent. And I forgot to mention earlier, but each page has an introductory paragraph just to explain what it's about and what's going on. And again, the single column layout is consistent. The contact page again. And I just wanted to go back to the site report because I thought this is a great example of some of the methods I used to achieve mobile optimization. So for example, as you can see here, these two images are exactly the same width. They're both stretched across the screen. That's only because on a mobile device the screen is quite small, and so you can't really afford to minimize images too much. Whereas if we were to go back to the desktop display, you can see this is still stretched across the screen, because it's about the desktop view, and while this is shrunk to about 50% because it doesn't need to be that wide. And this was achieved using relative measurements such as EM and percentages. And I think that concludes everything I wanted to discuss in this video demonstration. Thank you for taking the time to watch this.